We're all owned by the syndicate, body and soul. Or should I just say body?
Hello, filthy movie lovers, something weirdos, and anti-criterion bros, to the 38th episode of The Sin Syndicate, where men come to be trodden underfoot, and we always have this in a higher heel. My name is Gentry Austin, writer and researcher, and I'm here with my co-host, adult film historian Casey Scott. And in this week's episode, we are joined by Jane Garrett, archivist, erotic historian, and author of John Willie, A Bizarre Life, to talk about director Joseph Marzano's 1967 adaptation of Leopold von Sacher-Masoch's infamous novel about sexual enslavement and loving cruelty, Venus in Furs.
This is Marzano, your director and host, cordially inviting the patrons of this theater to a weekend of fun and games with Eleonora and Stephanie. Leopold von Sacher-Masoch wrote Venus in Furs 100 years ago, and from his name evolved the word masochism. Every meaning of that word, every sensual dream he ever had is brought to vivid life in this fascinating film inspired by his work. Any man who's experienced the delicious pain of desire inflicted by beautiful women will know the evil truth of Venus in Furs.
Can there be any greater cruelty?
You're dreaming. So it has always been. Since the times of Helen and Delilah, right down to Lola Montez.
If there is something you feel we left out in our brief resume of weekend activities only hinted at here, do please let us know. The girls will be delighted to fulfill and gratify your every expectation. Oh, you'll see Venus in Furs shall destroy you. At this theater soon. Soon.
But before we bring on Jane, we have a few sexploitation news items and updates. Casey, should we start with this top one here? Commentaries. You want to tease some more?
I do. Well, because we've been working hard on these
Seriously.
commentaries.
Oh my God.
Seriously, because it's a lot of research into. Luckily, yeah, we won't say what the titles are. They are being announced on May 1st. So you will hear about it when this episode comes out Wednesday.
Yep.
What day is that? The 30th?
So you'll hear
the
about
day
it like
after
a
this
few days
episode drops.
after. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, it's about there are films and filmmakers. Well, we've covered the filmmakers sort of, but there's other deep dives that we have to do. So it's like a lot of research because obviously if you've listened to our previous commentaries for Sexploiters and Raw Love, we like to cover every possible nook and cranny of information that we can. And luckily, there's a lot of really good nooks and crannies about these films. So
yeah. Kind of surprising, too, for as well-known, semi-well-known as these are in the sexploitation field, there's still a lot of inaccuracies out there with regard to cast and crew.
Yep. Which we are trying to fix. I haven't decided if I'm going to fix IMDb. I might let you do that. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and we're trying to get them done as quickly as possible because they're going to be announced with them being on there. So, but yeah, they will be done. Yeah, no, I think that's good. A little tease for those. Yeah.
Yep.
Gorgeous restorations. We'll tell you that. Absolutely stunning. Yeah. So yeah.
We also have an update. Alex Holmes, Slipcase Alex, correction from our Smoke and Flesh episode. He is a big VHS collector, as we have mentioned. I think we had said sort of an incorrect date with regard to when the Smoke and Flesh VHS came out. Okay. So he's a collector, and he noticed you can kind of tell a difference between what were re-releases and sort of original based on the design on the back. So, I'm just going to quote him here. The way to tell is from the design on the back. For Smoke and Flesh, it would have been issued from either 94 or 95 because the two copies that are sold on eBay are both 96 reissues. Okay. This would also be the case for a copy of Caged Virgins, which he also picked up. That was originally released in 93, but he has the reissue copy. So I have some examples in our show notes. Yeah, it's kind of a cool little note here. Just you can tell the 92, those early 92, 93 releases, and then the 94, 95, 96 reissues. I'm sure Lisa was probably more closely involved with those later ones. So
yes, because she probably. Except the earlier ones, the design on those is good, and that's something else that I would want to ask her. It's like, who was doing the in-house designing before you got there? Because that look, it didn't change that much, but it changed enough that it became more, I don't know, more consistent across the board. Because if you look at the ones from earlier that he has, there's like, they look pretty different in terms of fonts and and other things, and then there's a consistency. The ones from 96. So I feel like that is Lisa's doing, where it's like, let's keep these consistent. Let's make these more collectible. I mean, she has that design background.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think it's definitely an improvement.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting. I think that's, and that just makes me think that I think Lisa, the Something Weird Press, I know that that's something that she is looking into. Do a book about this, like for real. Like I would love to see the gradual changes over time for the different box art, and then I would eat that shit up.
We've got another update here with another date related update here, Casey.
Yes, which I only, to further tease what we're working on, I only figured this out because I had to do research on the distribution of this film. Anyway, so we had mentioned last episode talking about Smoke and Flesh, how the openings were very similar between Acid Eaters and Smoke and Flesh. And I noted that, so Acid Eaters has that year 68 attached to it. It actually did not come out in 68. It came out in October 67. So it's much more of a 67 film than a 68 film. So it came out, several months earlier than Smoke and Flesh. So it's possible that, Mangine and co. saw Acid Eaters and felt a little inspired by that one to do.
Yeah, very possible.
Add elements to it. It's possible.
If we really wanted to get into it, we could see if it was screened in like Jersey or New York, where
probably was.
Mangine would have seen it. Yeah.
Right. But I believe that it probably was. Yeah. Yeah. We have more updates on that, too.
Well, speaking of New Jersey, yeah.
I know. God love Sean Langrick. So Sean Langrick is not just... We've already established that he's a New Jersey locations guy with Francie's Friday, where he really went into detail about those locations. So he was able to pinpoint the locations where the drug dealer in Smoke and Flesh, all of the stuff with him driving down the streets and things, or most of the stuff, was actually shot in Bloomfield, New Jersey, specifically around Glenwood Avenue and Bloomfield Avenue. And then he also found that is where Mangine lived at the time. And he married his first wife in January 1968 in Bloomfield, New Jersey. And then they divorced in California in 73, and that's when he married Adrienne like 10 years later. And then we'd also talked about the biker taking the tunnel into the city, and that kind of implies that his journey in this film is more or less geographically accurate, because he's coming from Jersey into New York, specifically into Greenwich Village, And he did confirm that the locations that I mentioned were like, in the village, the path station. He confirmed that was accurate. And then there was another building on Church Street, which he also noted. So that was good to know, the New Jersey connection. And it's interesting, the more films from this area, from the New York area that we're watching, I think the constant belief in the fact that they're not credited, locations aren't credited typically. It's always like, well, this is a New York apartment, and that's not always the case. Sometimes they're going to go to, well, not even Manhattan. It could be Queens, it could be Jersey, it could be Long Island. I think we had a movie at Coney Island too. So it just makes me think that I need to be more like Sean and keep an eye on these locations. But also Sean is like, there's no one else like Sean. So, he's going to notice these locations, and that's not locations that just anybody who knows Jersey is going to recognize.
When I saw that shop, right, I'm like, I know Sean's on it. I don't even know. I don't even need to look this up. He'll figure out where this is.
Right. Like, he's good about New York locations. I think he also mentioned Florida and California is good too. But then also Mike McCollum's good about that too. And we have an update from Mike McCollum too, which we'll go over as well after we finish the Sean updates, because he gave us another good one. Actually, he gave us 2 additional good ones. Sean was really on the case this episode.
I love this one because it confirms what I was trying to argue to you, which is that this was not shot, that the house in Smoke and Flesh, it's not like a walk-up. It doesn't look like a walk-up to me. It's an actual Jersey, I don't want to say suburban, maybe slightly suburban house with multi-levels, which appears to be probably
which makes more sense.
Mangine's house.
Yeah. Right. Well, because he confirmed that Joe Mangini found an article from August 1964 which described him as a high-altitude photographer and skydiver. So the skydiving connection to Ian Merrick, the production manager, is right there, and then they both connecting to Mahon in that way makes total sense. Yeah. And then something we both missed was the skydiving book on the bookshelf in the apartment.
I went back and looked, and I still couldn't see it.
Yeah, like that's why I'm just like, Sean
is insane.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Thank God he's using his powers for good. Not evil. Yeah, this is some dangerous shit. But yeah, no, that was really good eagle eye viewing. So it's just like, okay, this definitely has to have been his house. So then basically everyone who was based in New York trekked out to Bloomfield, New Jersey, and shot in Joe's house, the interiors. And that also makes sense because then there's the attic, which makes sense that it's a house and not like even a townhouse in the village. Yep. So that definitely makes sense. Yeah. And that kitchen is also, in hindsight, much more spacious than a New York kitchen would be. So it's a lot of stuff that's kind of like, okay.
I love it because it just clicked everything into place once we got that kind of Bloomfield, New Jersey that confirmation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we got a picture of him too, which is great. Because there's a picture of him in that 1964 article.
Yes.
in a plane, ready to take a picture. So like that was helpful too, and confirming from that picture that he's not in this movie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Another Sean Langrick update here. Janet Banzette.
That was interesting too, because he said, "I assume you found this stuff," and I was like, "No, I have not." So the first. I was like, "No, Sean, believe it or not, this is why we mentioned in the last episode, this is why we need more hands in the pie and more people involved. This is why we need it's a group project, not an individual gate-kept project. This is why we need more people on this, because this is stuff that I missed, that you missed, that I don't think Alex was aware of this either. So it's like, yeah, people use different research methods, and Sean's are filling in those blanks. And there's other people that are doing the same thing. So apparently she had a side career in newspaper syndication as a columnist for a guy named Joseph Khalif, who ran something called American Feature Syndicate. And so she was there from roughly 70 through 71, basically up until the time of her death. And it makes sense because she showed up in all these newspaper columns and little bits and little blurbs about, how she was about town. She had little roles in plays and things. And Sean noted that Khalif was connected to a lot of those blurbs. And so it makes sense then that they were connected in another way, which was that he was employing her. But the extent of the employment, we're still not sure about, because he's unable to find any confirmation that these things, because he found a bunch of articles that her name is on. He can't find if they were published anywhere or not, or if they were just available to be published in syndication.
Yeah.
So that's one of his next things he needs to research. One of her last column, I think the last column that he could find for her, was dated for July 31st, 1971, which is a couple days after her death. So very strange. But the real thing I'm excited about is that she copyrighted a script she wrote called The Rocking Horse Girl in January 1970. So to copyright a script, you have to deposit a copy of it with the Copyright Office. So Janet Bands' script is on file at the Copyright Office. And so I would love to read a copy of that and know what the heck she wrote and why she wrote it. Yeah.
In which Copyright Office? Do we know where this is? New York?
There is only one Copyright Office.
That's what I was going to ask. Is there
the United States Copyright Office? There are no copyright offices per state, Gentry.
Okay.
There's no.
Hey, you went to school for this. I didn't.
Wait, but you don't know about copyright? I'll teach you about copyright.
I know
copyright
you love to talk about copyright.
That's my passion. Yeah, no, the Copyright Office is the United States Copyright Office. There is only one Copyright Office. Okay. So that's where people deposit films, scripts, tapes of songs, everything that if you're registering something for copyright, you send it to Washington, D.C. So she did that for this. And I'd like to read it. The Rocking Horse Girl. A year and a half before she died. So I'd really like to know if she was trying to sell it.
Yeah.
I want to know if it was a script for theater or film, because those scripts would be very different based on like direction and stuff in that script.
And who knows how much of herself is in this script?
Yeah. I mean, what if it's like autobiographical? What if it's about a girl who came from Dallas to New York? I don't know. I'm fascinated. Yes, I also love the idea that this sexploitation actress wrote something called The Rocking Horse Girl, and it's about a woman. So I'm automatically interested. Like, how is she writing women based on her experiences, so far in her life? Fascinating.
Yeah. Mike McCollum's got something for us too. This is The Angry Sky. Was this the Barry Mahon movie?
Yeah, that was the one that Ian Merrick produced, and there was like a premiere in '66, and I forget where it was now, but we talked about it in that episode, in that Smoke and Flesh episode, and I'd mentioned I don't think it was released anywhere because I can't find any evidence of it. He found at least a screening on television in Chicago in 1967, which is like early. Yeah, I think it was made 66 or 67. But apparently it was a documentary about a man trying to set a record for high altitude parachuting, and he was injured on his third attempt. So once again, here we have parachuting and skydiving, and Ian Merrick was involved. And then it makes me think, okay, was Marzano involved? Probably, because he was shooting, he was photographing people doing skydiving. So that's likely that he was involved with that as well.
Also notes the play bands that went to Florida. What's this about? Watch the Birdie.
She did she did a play in Florida, which I found an article about, and the play that she went to appear in was directed by Richard B. Schull, who was in he was the star of Watch the Birdie, and then he wrote Pamela You Are for William L. Rose, and then he copyrighted some things with William L. Rose as well. So he was a big collaborator with Rose. I feel like he also was involved with Rent-A-Girl, and he definitely did the story for Aroused. So he was involved with other sexploitation stuff, but he was a very popular character actor before he died. Yeah. So the connections to sexploitation are obviously there because she went to Florida and was directed. So, directed by this guy that I'm trying to think if she did any films with him. But yeah, so that was an interesting connection that they both went down to Florida to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last McCollum one was that he was researching the electronic. I mentioned I thought Sean was researching Jesse L. Berger, and Mike confirmed that he was the one researching the electronic lever. So we will.
Oh yes, when we talked about possibly covering that later. Yeah.
Yes, which I still think we should. So then we'll reach out to Mike and see what he has found on that. I think. Because I would never think that was the guy's real name. So it's, I'm very interested to see what he found for that guy.
Yeah. And I wonder if maybe that would be the opportunity to dig into Natara. Maybe we could find something out. No,
That digging was that digging has been
digging's been
done. There's
done.
nothing to find. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing to find. We need a talent release form, and we're not going to get one.
Yeah.
So
To get a
yeah,
real
she
name.
did. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, folks, we need talent release forms. Yeah, there's a lot of people who try to do like reverse AI to find people. There's an entire Facebook group that is based around doing reverse AI, and I'll tell you right now, 90% of those are inaccurate. So
Mhm.
stop doing that. We need real names, real dates of birth, real information. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think that wraps up our news updates,
Mhm.
which is good timing here. I think we'll bring on Jane.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, it's nice to meet
Hello.
you.
Nice to meet you too.
We just wrapped up. Good timing. I think in my intro, I kind of copied the description you gave on the back of your book by saying archivist, erotic historian, and author. Maybe you can fill in some blanks there.
Sure. My name's Jane Garrett, and I am an archivist and special collections librarian. I live in Washington State, and I'm also the author of John Willie, A Bizarre Life, which is a biography of mid-20th century bondage and fetish artist and Bizarre magazine founder John Willie.
Yep. Well, where did you get your start in this research and history?
Well, it's really been kind of a lifelong interest of mine, and as far as becoming interested in John Willie specifically, that started when I was a teenager. One of my friends brought back that Taschen set, The Complete Bazaar, which published in the 90s. One of my friends brought that back from a trip she had taken to visit some family in Germany, and at this time, I think I was about 17 years old, 16, 17, somewhere in there. And I'd never seen his work before. I was looking through this book and I thought, oh my God, what is this? I can't believe this came out in the 40s and 50s. And so that was kind of the start for me as far as becoming interested in his work. And over the years, I collected issues of Bazaar, and I collected his work and anything that I could find about him. But the one thing that was always missing was a biography. There were little things written, introductions to books or short articles, but there was not a biography that had come out. And that was something I always wanted to read. And then one day I thought, well, maybe I could write a biography. I've always liked to write. I was a writing major when I was an undergrad. So that was just kind of something I decided to try and see if I could do. And sure enough, it came together. It was a lot of fun. It was really, really a privilege for me to write this book and be able to do that kind of deep research and share what I'd learned with other people.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you've been doing like appearances and readings and pairing them with like shows and stuff. You've got one coming up, I think.
Yeah, I got one coming up next week, May 2nd, which is Saturday, and that's going to be in Spokane, Washington, at a bookstore called Giant Nerd Books, and they're doing a fetish art show.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of artists. They've already, I guess, selected the people that are going to be in it. I'm so excited to see all the artwork, and I'm going to do a book talk and sign books and that kind of thing.
This is eventually going to tie back into our movie, of course, but I'm always curious, how the audience reception has been to this material and these shows. Like, you've been in this scene for a while. Like, how have you seen it, mold and change?
Well, truthfully, I mean, first of all, the turnout for everything has been fantastic, way beyond my expectations every time, which has been really, really cool. And just the huge variety of people that come out that are interested in the different reasons that they're interested.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting to talk to people and hear about their interests and why they're there. It's just really interesting and exciting. And recently I did an intro for Satan in High Heels, which I know you guys did an episode a few weeks ago. And there was a great turnout for that. I wasn't really sure because Sex Fest, who I was working with, they usually do hardcore, which is you get to see hardcore on the big screen. And this was their first time really doing kind of more of a sexploitation film. And so I wasn't sure, I thought, oh, is the audience going to like that, or are they not going to come out for this one? But a lot of people came out for it and seemed really interested. I gave a kind of a history talk at the beginning and folks were really engaged. So that was a lot of fun.
That's great. Yeah, I love that movie. Because when we covered it, I remember that Gentry was kind of like, it wasn't as like, it didn't have like as much sex or like ties to fetish as much as he thought it would. But it just, wanted. I don't know. Yeah, right. Right, exactly. You were kind of like, this could have gone further. But remembering that it was made in like between 60 and 62, it's kind of like, what can we get away with? Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And then you compare it to this movie and it's like, they're really testing a lot of waters with this one because it's by this point it's 67. So we've had the Olga films. We've had some of the Michael Findlay films. It really is sticking a lot to the East Coast. And so this one, there are so many different fetishes in this. And so it feels like there's a little something for everybody in this, which I think which makes it really interesting, and including like homoerotic stuff, which is very unusual for films at this time to be including like the massage scene and things like that.
And the weightlifting scene, yeah.
Yes. I mean, I love it, obviously. but like, I'm not the audience for these movies, so it's kind of like, I love it. I wonder what they thought of it at the time. I've always wondered about that,
Yeah. Well, I know, Jane, when we were initially talking, we were like, we want to bring you on to talk about something, and we're trying to find the right movie. And so I think we initially suggested Olga, one of the Olga films, and you did not love it. Tell us a little bit about like your response to that.
I'd watched an Olga, the first Olga movie before, and I remember thinking back on it, I thought, I seem to remember I didn't really like that well for some reason. And when I went back to watch it the second time, I was like, oh yeah, I don't know what it is. I find it, this is going to sound bad, but I find it a little bit boring. It's just, it wasn't really.
You're not wrong. Yeah. No, you're not wrong. That's a valid critique for sure.
I can see the Olgas being a little bit more, if you compare it to what we're going to talk about here, Venus and Furs, like the Olgas are a little cartoonish maybe in their depiction. I think this is a little bit more like kind of darkly, I mean, I think there's a touch of humor in this, but I think it's a little bit more surreal and dark, and I could see the appeal more.
Yeah, I love how stylish this Venus and Furs.
Stylish, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you were saying about all the different fetishes, what was cool, I was noticing, was even some kind of old school fetishes that you don't often see represented. Like, for example, there were a couple of instances where women were wearing these very long white satin gowns, and satin was a really popular fetish material for a long time, both the feel of skin, but also before we had things like latex or PVC, where satin supplied that shine that is so appealing to a lot of people. Wow. So that was something that I was kind of surprised to see at this late date, 1967, when we were starting to have things like rubber attire and stuff like that. Not that rubber didn't exist, but, rubber kind of fetish wear.
Yeah, that is interesting. I didn't know that about satin, because I mean, that is something that I'm not as familiar with, and so that's why I absolutely do need your book. I'm more familiar with gay fetishism. So like Samuel Stewart, when that book came out.
Yes, I love that book.
Yeah, and that was a game changer. And I was like, when I was reading it, I was like, okay, so this is the gay side. Like, what is the straight side like? So I feel like John Willie, I need to be familiar with John Willie, and that will add that additional context of like what was going on at the same time, what was his background,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. John Willie was heavy heterosexual in his approach to fetish. So yeah, that definitely is there.
Hey, what are you wasting the sweat on that broad, Davey? Don't you know that type? They never buy.
Oh, I don't mind.
Nah, you're too nice. That kind of like to take advantage. They like to see a guy crawl around on all fours. Hey, Louie. Remember that redhead I waited on last night?
Yeah, the big one.
Yeah. Remember what a hard time she gave me? You should have seen her after I got her home. Yeah, you gotta know how to handle them. Let me clear you, Davey.
I'll see you later.
Should we talk about the release history really quick, Casey?
Yeah. Well, I did want to start with the trailer. The
Yeah.
director, Joseph Marzano, hosts the trailer. So it has that personal touch where he's like, that he hosts the trailer and opens it with like, "This is Marzano, your director and host," and it's kind of like he's welcoming you to like, "This is the circus, like this is the welcome
Yeah.
to our show, like we're going to show you all these amazing things," and it just definitely ties into like I think you'd mentioned in the notes how it feels a little personal for him in some of this stuff. He casts himself in certain sequences. there's in like a submissive role for most of the time he's in there. So it definitely makes me wonder, but it definitely has that tie of the personal because not a lot of directors were doing that. Like Russ Meyer would do it. No, actually, Russ Meyer never did it. Russ Meyer had stand-ins to do it. But yeah, a lot of directors, they were not as involved with hosting the trailers for their movies. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I love that introduction where he's like, "This is Marzano," because it made me think, we never got like a series of Marzano films where he could have created this persona character for himself, but we never got that because he, as we'll go into, we'll learn his what happened after this. But where did this premiere here in my town?
It did. It premiered in your town, except New York wanted people to believe it was premiering in New York, which is not the case. So it's interesting because we're doing research for other commentaries we're doing, and Minneapolis was like a go-to premiere town for a lot of sexploitation, which I don't know if you knew that, Gentry, but these movies were premiering in your backyard.
Well, I know Friedman, had a connection with that theater, so he helped get some stuff, but this, wasn't Friedman related.
No, this one was Novak, which we've talked a lot about Novak on here, and I don't think we need to cover him that much on this because you don't need to get me started. I'll put it that way. You don't need to. Yeah, we're going to keep the vibes positive. I don't need to talk about what a sleaze Novak was. Premiered with Wonderful World of Girls, which was way older and totally different, and a color movie in Minneapolis. Yeah, but the world premiere, which happened 3 days later, was Monday, July 10th. And that premiered simultaneously at the Tivoli in Manhattan and the Cinart in Brooklyn. And it premiered paired with two different movies. So Mondo Bizarro, again, a color movie at the Tivoli in Manhattan. And then Kiss Me Nicely, which I think is Kiss Me Quick at the Cinart. So you have this movie that's coming out, which is a very sexually forward black and white film paired with two very different older color films on the B side. So I thought that was really strange. I don't know if maybe the programming thought was that they were like palate cleansers or something after kind of being in this black and white world that is very different. But I found that programming very unusual that they would pair it with color films from 3 years previously in Kiss Me Quick's case.
I mean, I think black and white still had this sort of a certain cachet with audience members who kind of knew what they were going to get with a black and white roughy nudie, and I think it had an audience that wanted to see that. I know we always talk about when color came in, black and whites were dead, but obviously it wasn't instantaneous.
No, well, Hollywood's the same way. I mean, they were Hollywood was still doing color films, widescreen films, but also black and white films that were more edgy or gritty or like urban city stories. So it makes sense that a lot of the New York films stayed black and white, and they really felt like the naked city sort of kind of visuals. But also strange that this was distributed nationwide by a California distributor, which was Novak. So he didn't distribute that many New York films. And the fact that he went back to the well for the same producer for 3 movies is very unusual because he really didn't do that frequently. So something about Lou Campa, he wanted to be in the Lou Campa business at least 3 times and before he bailed.
Yeah, and speaking of Lou Campa, this was paired with Miniskirt Love, Cool It Baby, a Depraved Desires triple feature on DVD. I think that's probably one of the best Image Something Weird releases they ever did, but I like these movies. I know some people don't. What do you think, Casey?
I agree. They're so different too. I mean, Miniskirt Love is basically like nonstop incest, essentially. It's like, it's much sleazier than this. That's for sure.
It's his aunt.
It's his aunt, but the aunt also has affection for her sister. And so, yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah.
And Kula Baby is very like crime syndicate kind of noirish thing about like a blackmail story.
Yeah.
So Venus in Furs is definitely the art one here. Like where there's a lot more style. There's a lot more. Yeah, style it's style with a capital S, I think, is Venus in Furs. And that's why it works, I think, is because he's really interested in telling this story. Well, there's very little story, but he's very interested in kind of building this visual tapestry for the audience, which I think is really interesting.
Well, I'm looking at these ad mats, and, I wanted to ask you, Jane, how familiar do you think audience members were to this story? Did they immediately know what this movie was going to be about when you advertised Venus in Furs?
Well, I think within kind of the existing fetish community, probably.
Mm-hmm.
The Venus in Furs was first translated into English, my understanding, in 1902 in a very small privately printed edition, which came out of Paris. And then there was a second English translation in 1921. And both of those translations were like not great translations, apparently. It wasn't until 1965 that there was the first English unexpurgated edition, and that came out of London through Luxor Press.
Oh, okay. So it was pretty fresh then. That's 65.
It's pretty fresh, right? Now that was England, but this was Luxor Press specialized in erotica. They had also brought out a copy of Memoirs of a Lady of Pleasure, Fanny Hill, and some of these other heavily banned books. And also, and around this time in the United States, also there were a lot of court cases, a lot of Supreme Court cases surrounding different books. And are they obscene? I'm not aware of any cases highlighting Venus in Furs specifically. And I actually don't know when the first American edition ended up finally coming out. But the fact that this British edition came out in 1965, I think that was probably a big part of the reason why, Gentry, as you pointed out, there were like a lot of different versions of Venus in Furs made right around this late 1960s period.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It's very strange they're all so close together. It's not like a Fanny Hill where you got a Fanny Hill in 64 and then in 68 and then there's at least some years between that, but this is kind of like, we need to hit while this is hot. And so now that it's finally available. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you haven't seen that that Barbara Steele short, I think it's on one of those releases, some Severin release, but yeah, I think that was one of the earliest. And it's just a short of her sort of, draping herself in fur, and then they read some passages from the novel. But yeah, right after that, then you get this one. And then you get the Franco one and the Massimo Dallamano one. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on those, Casey? I know you've seen them.
Have you seen them? Have you seen those, Jane, or no?
I have not, no.
Okay. The Franco one is great. I love the Franco one. The soundtrack is good. It's a really good role for Maria Rome.
That's what I was going to say. It's like Maria Rome's best role. Yeah.
It's really kind of, it transforms into like a horror narrative where it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like an avenging angel movie where like this woman who was murdered by a group of people miraculously reemerges and starts taking out these people one by one. Kind of like The Bride Wore Black. She was avenging her own death and not her husband's, sort of. It's similar to that. I love that movie. I have not seen the Dallamano version, but I remember seeing a trailer for like a 1976 reissue that made it look wildly different than I think it's supposed to be, because they edited the trailer to make it look much more erotically charged than I think it actually is.
Okay. Well, I have seen it.
I think it was called Devil in the Flesh is how they reissued it. Yeah, that's a really good trailer, but I know when I looked it up, I was like, oh, this is from 1969. I don't think it's as tantalizing as this trailer makes it look.
Yeah, maybe not. It's very stylish. I think it's more accurate to the novel than obviously Franco's is, and this one, Marzano's is. Mm-hmm, and as Laura Antonelli as Wanda. I mean, she's okay. I know, Casey.
I'm not a big Laura Antonelli person.
It's very 69 Euro erotica update on Venus in Furs.
I
I think it's pretty
like
fun.
that.
Yeah.
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 Interesting.
But yeah, I don't know anything about these other later adaptations. There's looks like Scandinavian version that I've heard is accurate from 94-ish, and then a Korean one from 2012. Yeah, I'm surprised. With that whole like Korean horror boom, there could have been like a really good, maybe I don't know, this is 2012. Guess I'll have to seek it out at some point. Maybe they
Yeah.
do like a horror adaptation.
Like Franco?
Yeah.
Because Franco's is such a horror movie. Like
Franco's is not, it's barely even a Venus and Furs movie, in my opinion.
That's Franco for you. Franco was
Yeah.
better at Desaad, and that's the interesting thing. It's very interesting that we have all these Venus and Furs adaptations. I mean, Desaad was, I think, much more popular in terms of adaptations because his name equaled like depravity or whatever, and it was, pushing the boundaries of sexuality. And so, yeah.
Yeah, on that note, yeah, Jane, you had said that you didn't hear of any censorship issues with Leopold's book, and I think because it's not that smutty, it's short. I've read it. I don't know, maybe I expected more, but yeah, it's more psychological. I don't know, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I would also say that there's not a lot of examples at this time, at this kind of mid 20th century period, of bondage and fetish material coming to court for I mean, obviously things were happening to Irving's Law, things were happening to some of the other publishers, but one of the reasons that the fetish industry grew so quickly was just the fact that this material is legal. No, you can't arrest somebody for having a pair of high-heeled shoes, for example. And so that could be part of the reason too why the book was kind of a few different reasons. One, there's no, it's not being published in the US. It's BDSM related. And as you say, it's more of kind of a psychological.
Mm-hmm. And it's a hetero romance. I mean, it's sort of a romance. So yeah, what would they try to punish it for? Yeah, I can't even imagine. But that's a good point that you made about like fetish material is inherently like it's everyday objects, sexualized, right?
Yeah.
More or less.
I need to read this. I haven't read this. I should have read it in preparation. But I didn't. I should have. It's funny because, I've seen this version and I've seen the Franco version. I've never thought to read that book. Unlike the Desauds. Like Desaad, I've read Philosophy in the Boudoir and Justine. I mean, they're very long, but
I know you've read those epic tomes and you haven't read this 100-page novel.
Yeah, no. I remember buying the Borders books. That's how long ago I bought those. That's how long ago I bought the Desauds. There was a nice collection, and I was mortified by them. I was like, oh my God, okay, they really went light in the film versions because there's a lot of stuff you can't shoot that's in the Desaad's books.
Of course,
so I'm intrigued. Yeah, so I'm intrigued that apparently there aren't a lot of faithful adaptations of this book. Mm-hmm. And so it made me think, is it unfilmable? But it sounds like if a lot of it is psychological or a lot of it is, a lot of books are like that where it's not about dialogue and character. It's kind of about like, creating a mood and things like that. And that can't necessarily be translated to a film by filmmakers.
I think it is more or less filmable. The Dallamano version, he just hides. I think the big thing is he hides a lot of the whipping behind objects, like a man he'll be whipped and Severin will be getting whipped behind like a futon or something. You don't really see all of it. But you can do that nowadays. You could have done that. You can do that in, 67 with this version.
Well, it makes me think of like other books, kind of like, what is it? The Man and His Maid, which became Naughty Victorians, which that was a big thing that was published under the counter.
They made into that hardcore movie, right?
They did. Yeah. That's kind of how you had to do it. And I think The Image is based on a book too. The Bradley Metzger movie, The Image. I think that's based on a French book too. So there are definitely other works of literature that have been translated into really rough films. So it's just interesting that the versions of Venus and Furs that I've watched are not rough, really. And so it just made me wonder how rough is the book. But it doesn't sound like it was. It's interesting.
I've never hit a man with glasses before. You, fix me a drink. And hurry up.
What do you think about this as an adaptation, Jane? Like, what do you think they were going for here?
Well, I mean, the movie barely has anything. This version barely has anything at all to do with the book.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of more of choosing that even as the title is kind of more of like a catch-all term, or more of a kind of trying to reel in somebody. If you like this, then I know you'll like, what we're creating here.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting, but certainly, I mean, the elements that remained the same are things like the main character being a submissive man and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I do think that this version has a lot of foot fetish material.
I was going to say, I loved that instead of focusing so much on the fur aspect, they really brought it to what was a very current and very popular fetish of the mid 20th century, which is foot fetishism and, stockings and extreme high heels. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's a shoe salesman, and we get the great scene in the shoe store. I just loved that scene so much.
I know,
Around and all the women it looked like something straight out of like an Eric Stanton comic or something. It was really cool.
Casey, where was that shoe store? Did we identify that?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is, so Capezio, you see the sign Capezio, and that was a real shoe store. But part of me wonders if it was a set. I mean, that's the weird thing about the photography in this movie. It is shot with like one light. And so it looks like everything is pitch black darkness at night, except for the one light that's focusing on everything. So I don't know if they shot it at the Capezio store in the middle of the night when it was closed, or if that was just a set to made up to look like a Capezio store. Well, you can see the boxes of shoes. So I'm just like, that seems like a lot if they're going to make up a shoe store set. So I was Googling Capezio, and I think,
like, I'm shocked that they were in this movie. I was surprised when I saw it.
I was very surprised. I was like, "Oh, this is a place." At first, I thought it was made up, but then I thought, well, no, they like to use. They can use a location. They'll definitely do it in New York. And so, at first, I thought it was the flagship store, which is in Manhattan. And I was looking at the street and everything. I was like, this doesn't look like the Manhattan location. So I think it's the Long Island location in Rockville Center, because that's where Marzano was originally from. So I think he took everybody to Long Island, and I think that is probably, there's a house on Long Island where it was shot, which that kind of makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. But so I believe he took everyone to Long Island and shot at the shoe store, maybe after dark. Like, he shot the exterior of him coming in during the day, and then at night, I think he shot the stuff at night probably.
Yeah.
But
I'm always jealous of you New Yorker, because you always see locations that you've probably been to, like the New York Public Library. Have you been there?
I meet people all the time at Bryant Park for meetings. Like, I met Gerard Damiano there the last time I saw him. Junior was at Bryant Park, and right around the corner, NYPL. Yeah. And it's so crazy how that location really hasn't changed that much. Like, there's some locations change like crazy in New York, obviously, because the city changes and morphs and things. But yeah, the NYPL classic won't change. So I love seeing it. And I can't believe that they had the brass ones to shoot at this location outdoors. Like, there's a story where they brought the women to run towards him as like a part of a fantasy that he has of all these women. It was supposed to be way more women than it was. So it's not as impactful, because it's like 4 or 5 women. So you're like, oh, just a lot of women leaving the library. He wanted it to be like a cavalcade of women. Yeah, a horde of women. And apparently there's a sequence at the end in the montage. You can see one of the women is straddling the lion.
Yeah. And
he shot that sequence, and apparently there was like a cop there, and they just shot it in front of the cop, and the cop didn't do anything. The cop was just kind of like, oh, this is really crazy. This girl in like, her bra and panties on top of the lion. I was like, that's 1966, 67.
Right. You gotta
New York.
Recreate that photo.
That's the Lindsay era. That's the Lindsay mayoral that's what it was like to be in New York when Lindsay was the mayor. Yeah. You could do whatever you wanted. That was around the time that the film commission was set up, I think. I think that was a Lindsay thing. So I think that's before they started to be more, you had to get like, permits and stuff through the film commission. I remember there's one sexploitation movie where at the end of the movie it thanks Mayor Lindsay. Or and I'm just like, that is crazy. I know you didn't get permits to shoot this. So it really feels like a slap in the face of Mayor Lindsay. Like, yeah, we shot in your city. Thank you for letting us.
That's funny.
Yeah. And there's some other locations too, and the subway's like that too. Actually, it looks like it was shot on like an abandoned subway car in the middle of the night, and it's like that single light. And it kind of adds to that dreamlike effect, though. It's like, is this actually happening? It just seems like this is a part of a fantasy because it's not.
Which it was in that case.
Yeah,
it was.
Right, exactly. So it's really, the style in this movie is so interesting.
But that's what I like too. It introduces that aspect where it's like, well, this part of it, this was a fantasy at the beginning, and then everything happens afterwards, and you're kind of like, wait, was this real too? Or not, because it's all shot the same, so it keeps it consistent. Yeah, it's very surreal. Mm-hmm. I bet that subway scene, they just like went to the far back and they just like found a car that was like unoccupied. Just like, all right, let's shoot this real quick.
I believe it. Yeah,
I love that subway scene and the part where when they're walking up the steps and he leans down and bites that woman's ankle.
Yes.
It was so well done. I just thought, even if you're not a foot fetishist, even if you don't care about feet and shoes, it's like, how can you not look at this scene and not be like, that is a pretty sexy moment right there?
Uh-huh.
I agree. I'm the most boring vanilla person on the planet, but there is stuff that is fetish stuff in movies that I'm just like, God, that looks great. God, yeah. So yeah. And then that's when it's like, I get it. I understand the communities and the appeal and everything. It's just like, it just won't click in my head for me to actively do it myself. But seeing it, the way that it's captured cinematically is like, this is great. I totally understand the appeal of this. Yeah. When it's done well, it really captures that appeal really well. And that sequence is great. Yeah. It's just kind of like, okay, yeah, I get it. That's really great.
Well, maybe that's like the question here with Marzano. Like, I wonder how much of this was a personal fetish thing, or he's just appealing to a certain market. I don't know.
I feel like there's a lot of love put into it at the very least. I don't like to speculate too much about people's, personal.
Right.
But there was a lot of care put into this movie, and I really appreciated that aspect of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think looking at the history of how this was made, I think we can see that he maybe felt like this was his shot. He's going to put as much on screen as he can. And that's what we got. Let's talk about Marzano here.
Very interesting character. Very strange character. And not just, strange in that he was I think you can kind of tell that he is a very interesting and unique artist from this film. And so I think when you're that kind of person that has a very distinctive point of view and a very distinctive way you want films to be done, kind of like, and not comparing them at all equally, but kind of like an Orson Welles, where it's someone who's like, this is how I want it. This is the way I want to do it.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that when you're dealing with somebody who has a distinctive point of view and a distinctive voice and they want to do something, but then it also makes it very difficult for them to work well with others. And that was kind of Marzano's problem, is that he couldn't really work that well with others. But he made so many different short films and things over the years, which I don't know where they went, which is very frustrating because so Barbara Ellen, the star of this, the first thing she ever did was a short called Barbara, which Joseph Marzano did, which is an experimental short, which is all just photos of her in different poses. And it's like a love letter to Barbara Ellen. And I'm dying to see that because I love Barbara Ellen. I'm just like, I want to. And that was 1963. So it was like 4 years before this. So she was with him for a while doing stuff for him. And there must have been something about him that she trusted to stay with him through all these different projects, because she was with him before he started doing sexploitation. So she must have trusted him to be like, sure, I'll follow you into sexploitation for Cool It Baby and Venus and Furs. And then she did movies with him after. So it wasn't a breaking point for their relationship.
Yeah, that's the weirdest part of the Marzano story to me, is her involvement, in helping script this and, like you said, following him on a couple projects, because, we hear all these stories about him from friends and coworkers, and they do not have great things to say about him.
The crews don't have the good stuff to say. I think that's the issue. Yeah, but I think his actors, they followed him over the course of his entire career. They stayed with him. So something about his work with the actors, they trusted him. Something about the crews, they found him very difficult. And I wonder if it's because he wasn't really able to. When you have that many ideas and you're that creative, he might have just had a problem being able to express those so crews could help him bring those to life. That might have been the problem. It might have been a communication issue.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But he worked very well with Lou Waldeck, who was the guy he worked with on Cool It Baby, and he wanted him to shoot this. And he was already shooting something else, so he had to get George Sorello, I believe, who was the cinematographer, who he worked with on a few other things. Waldeck is great, but I think the photography in this didn't need to be Waldeck. I think Sorello does a really good job. But Waldeck, even after he left Sexploitation, continued working with him in his independent films. So, yeah, he made good connections with people. I think it was just, I think the people who were in charge of things in terms of like financing and distribution, they did not get along with him. So, you kind of have to deal with these very difficult egomaniacs in production and distribution. And when you have an ego like him, but he can back his ego up. These other people in the film business, they have money, and the money is the ego. Yeah.
We'll have to get Jane Cool It Baby. I think she might like that one. It's a little
bit Baby's not bad.
Kookier. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if I've seen that one yet.
Yeah. It's not bad. I think Miniskirt Love. I prefer Miniskirt Love just because, that stars Janet Banzett, who is one of the doms in this. She's in Miniskirt Love. She plays an aunt who comes to take care of her nephew, and they fall in love. And then, she's a little young to be playing that part. But and Cool It Baby, it's like a big blackmail story with Barbara Ellen is a blackmail victim of so you get to see this guy who's in the syndicate. Yeah, she's good in it, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, what did you think about the lead, Barbara Ellen, in this, Jane? I mean, she doesn't get. I think it was noted in a story as well that she refused to do nudity. But when I think back at the film, I'm like, oh, I had to think about it. Wait, did she get nude or not? But she doesn't. But it's risque enough where you kind of think she did.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there were so many parts of this movie where I was like surprised by how far they were going for 1967, kind of.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I really liked her. I liked everybody in this movie. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Everybody seemed to be on the same wavelength, which was nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That Barb. The thing about Barb. Yeah, I guess I forgot she didn't do nudity either. I think because she is so captivating as a lead that I actually kind of wasn't even expecting her to do nudity, because the fact that he was so enamored of her was like, yeah, I get it. Like she's great. I would get in her car and go wherever she wanted to. Like, and I think he cast very well. But also the fact that she wrote it or helped him write it meant that she helped to create this character that she knew that she could do what she wanted with this character. So she
called the shots a bit. Yeah.
Yes. So she knew I don't have to do nudity because there's going to be other people to do that. I will just stay the central figure that is his obsession. And that's perfectly fine,
Which, and truthfully, being kind of like the dominant figure there, it's better that she's not being nude. It kind of adds a little something to the character too, I think.
Yeah, good point.
He does more disrobing than she does. Like, it really is flipped. And I'm like, great. Yeah, I was... we'll go into it, but I was researching this guy and I found him, and he died a couple of years ago during COVID at 91 years old, a competitive bodybuilder, competed in Mr. Universe.
Talk about Shep Wild, yeah.
Shep Wild, yes.
Great name.
He has apparently he told stories about making movies to his friends and family, and I'm just like, where was I? So I need to reach out to his family and see. Also, he apparently was a very popular model at around New York,
like a male artist model you're talking about.
Yes, but also photography club. So then I'm kind of okay, well, where are the photos of him? Because I can't find any photos of him, at least under his real name. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, did he work with any of the New York based like fetish photographers that I know of. That like I think Taschen's released a bunch of those too. So now I need to go look in all those books that I have in my on my bookshelf and see if I can spot Shep Wild maybe.
Oh, sure. I'll just look through all the books.
Yes. I mean, I look through them anyway. But yeah, any reason to go back. Make sure it's. But he was older when he did this. He and Belladonna, who is also in this movie, so Belladonna is the actress that's straddling the lion, and she's a little older. She's also one of the doms in this too with Janet Banzit. So she was born in 1924. So in this movie, she's 43 years old, and she was very into like health foods and alternative medicine. So she doesn't look 43. Like she is able to run with these 20-year-olds and have fun. And she's very popular with a director named Joe Sarno. So I was able to find her. Unfortunately, she passed away, but she was a model in Hollywood. Like she went out on dates with like Rock Hudson and stuff in the 50s before she came out to New York to do sexploitation. And I actually just emailed her daughter before we started recording. And I was like, I want to know about your mom's modeling.
Are you saying she was a beard to Rock Hudson?
Yes, but she also dated some other people. I'm trying to remember now because so she's originally from Dayton, Ohio. And she relocated to New York. And then in 1981, she relocated to Dayton, Ohio. And there's an interview. She said she did lots of studio publicity stuff with the likes of Tony Curtis and Rock Hudson. And then she came to New York and she modeled for 20 years. And there's no mention of the films in there. But, that's kind of what she did. So she came back to Dayton, Ohio and worked at a natural food place before she died in 2013. But I emailed her daughter and I was like, I'd like to know about your mom's modeling. And I left it at that because when you're reaching out to family members, and family members might not know that included films. So I wanted to know about the modeling. So we'll see where that goes.
So Shep Wild was was it like erotic stuff? Do you think? His modeling work?
I mean, if he was like a regular bodybuilder, like he competed for Mr. Universe, he competed for, oh gosh, what else? Mr. Eastern North America. He was in the Army. He was also a professional massage therapist, and he was like a go-to physical director to the stars. Because I found an advertisement in 1957 Billboard, which has massage, reduce, and relax, scientific treatment in his real name in New York. So when he's doing that massage in the film, that's what he did. Yeah. So when he wasn't doing modeling work for photography and artists and stuff like that, he was a very popular masseur for people. Apparently, so on his obituary is interesting. So the last line of the obituary that his family put together, his name was Joe. Joe Coitila was his real name. Born in 1929. So again, he is 39 when he did this. 38, so a little older for this film. It says, Joe lived a full and interesting life for which he loved to tell stories about. He loved to joke and make people laugh. He was always positive. Joe never complained about anything, not even when he should have. And then his in-laws commented in this obituary and said, Joe was a positive and kind man. We enjoyed his company, his stories of the past, his passion for fitness, and his voracious appetite. He always talked about his acting career, his love for Marilyn Monroe, Frank Sinatra, and the celebrities he met as a masseuse. He will be sorely missed. So
that's sweet.
Massaged Marilyn Monroe and Frank Sinatra and other people. But his acting career, this is his acting career. He did this. He was in 2 Joe Sarno movies. He was in Fly Now, Pay Later. So maybe he knew who directed that. We're trying to figure that out, Gentry.
I don't think he actually talks in that. I think he's just the man in the dream, right? Yeah, just in the clouds.
Yeah, but he's in it. So
he's in it. Yeah.
It sounded like he remembered stuff. So I need to reach out to the kids to see. Yeah, I if he talked that much, then they probably have stories they could share because I'm obsessed with him for obvious reasons.
I mean, even as a straight man, I want to see his early photos just to see.
Me too.
How they were set up. Like, I mean, Jane, what would be the market for back then? What was out there for, like, if a guy wanted to see Shep Wild, shirtless in a magazine, where would you find that?
I mean, there were a lot of bodybuilder magazines.
It would be marketed as a bodybuilding magazine, but it would be understood that it was marketed also for like the gay community, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's coded. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And then, also, I think, I think Casey could speak more on this, but, in the 1950s, there were some gay magazines that were brought before the Supreme Court for obscenity. The most famous case would be One magazine, which is kind of seen as a, I don't know, is it the first Casey or one of the first homophile?
Yeah, homophile was the word they like to use too. Yeah, it was it was very that. And I think that was the first case of its type. I think they were trying to make an example of it.
And they won the case. I mean, it was determined this is not obscene. This can go through the mail. It can retain its mailing privileges and all of that. Now One magazines, the issues that I've seen don't have, sexy photos inside of them of bodybuilders, but that's just kind of another example of the kind of material that was out there for gay men. And there were also some lesbian magazines as well. But yeah, that's the type of material that was for gay men. It is my understanding.
Yeah. The big one I know is Bob Miser, but there are so many more other than Bob Miser. I mean, Bob Miser was Athletic Model Guild, but there were New York photographers, there were Florida photographers. It was kind of like sexploitation. You had photographers in all the major metro areas, not just Hollywood. But that's why I'm down to talk to his kids, because I'm like, and also Googling that very specific name, it doesn't come up with a lot. So I'm just like, is this an undiscovered gem that the bodybuilding fetish community doesn't even know about? Like, if there's photos, I know a lot of men that would want to see them. So maybe it's time to get on that and try to,
I bet you'll be able, if you can find photos, I bet there will be one with him in that same Tarzan underwear. I bet that was in his rotation.
We can also.
Yes. I hope so. Yes. I hope that that was part of his personal wardrobe. Yeah. So, yeah, he just took it with him everywhere he went.
You are the one who desires. We are the ones who are desired. This is woman's entire advantage. There's something in you that makes me want to punish you, dominate you. You shall be bound with stockings, sound and helpless, gagged, trodden, unloved, till you can love. Then you may kiss my breast, my mouth, but first my toes. You shall be our slave, and you shall feel the pressure of my foot. Without mercy.
Anything the matter, buddy? No, nothing. Okay.
What else do we want to cover on Marzano? I mean,
oh yeah, I kind of detoured. Sorry, sorry, Belladonna and Shep Wild distracted me.
Yeah.
Well, the big thing that he did was a movie called Man Outside, and that was kind of his calling card. He did that in 1965, and that was Barbara Ellen was involved with that. The drag queen in this, which is Bob What's-His-Face, and his wife were involved with that. A lot of the people that he took, and a lot of the cast in Cool It Baby were also in that. So he used that as his calling card to try to be like, well, I can make a movie,
and
I can do it cheaply.
Long. I don't know what this thing was.
I don't even know where to get a hold of it. A lot of I don't know where his stuff went. I'd have to reach out to probably Nathan Schiff for that, because Nathan Schiff sounds like the person who was the closest to him before he passed away. So Cool It Baby was his first one, and that was kind of his introduction to sexploitation. And I think that the producer, Lou Campa, on that was so impressed by the way he was able to do stuff really quickly and efficiently on a low budget. He was kind of like, okay, go nuts with this movie. Here's $10K. You can do any movie you want. He brought it in under budget. He got $10K. I think he got it in for $85.50 was the final budget on that, which is impressive for a movie that looks this good, that it's that cheap. But yeah, he eventually, Venus and Furs, Lou Campa, his producer, I think got so fed up with him because he had a lot of great ideas, but not the budget or the ability to get them done efficiently or quickly. So he brought it in under budget, but there was still a lot of stuff that he still wanted to do that he couldn't do. So this is kind of, it's not 100% the movie he wanted to do, but it's close. But I think his issues with Lou Campa led to Lou Campa not wanting to work with him. And I think he used Venus and Furs as another calling card to go to other distributors. He went to Sam Lake, and then he went to Joseph Brenner. And the Brenner meeting was disastrous. And so that was it. I think Joe Brenner kicked him out of his office and was like, I don't know who you think you are. Get out of my office. And Joe Brenner, notoriously difficult anyway. So not the best producer, maybe. He should have probably gone to Stan Borden. Stan Borden might have been nicer to him.
Wasn't there something it was in Brenner's office? He was acting all high and mighty, saying like,
yes,
I don't pull my own cable. Other people do that, and kind of acting like,
no, he told him, you'll have to pull your weight on my set. He told the distributor, Joe Brenner, you will have to help me. And he said, I don't do that. So I was like, no, I won't. And I think kicked him out of the office. He's like, that's not how this business works. You need to crank these out quick because we have product to get into the theaters. We have a schedule. We got to get stuff in there while the iron's hot. And Marzano, his temperament was not made for this business. He really wasn't. I wish he'd made more movies like this that weren't necessarily. It makes me wonder what he could do if he didn't have to deal with like market demands, for these. Like if he wanted to do another Marzano movie, like I just wonder if he could have done like something artsy. I don't know, like a Jack Smith maybe, or there are a lot of like independent filmmakers in New York. I mean, the Warhol years were happening then, and I just think he was very difficult. I think he was very difficult to deal with. Yeah. He
was apparently really proud of that scene, the bathtub milk scene, on rewatching it. It's like it's very nicely framed, but I don't know. It doesn't stand out that much to me. I don't know why he was so proud of that one.
I think, sometimes there are directors who will remember things a certain way.
Yeah.
That might be what it is. Or he remembered it so vividly in his head because that's another story that was told. For years, he knew that Harry Novak bought the movie, so he's trying to get copies of his movies.
Seen it for so long,
and I think it took him forever to finally get copies of them, if he ever did. So it's possible he's remembering something the way it was on the set, or the way he saw it theatrically, and then hadn't revisited it for like 40 years before he passed away.
So in that scene, Barbara Allen has like the mask on. Is there any examples that you can think of, Jane, like in magazines? Like, was that a common thing?
Oh, yeah, especially if you see photos from the 19th century or the very early 20th century, like up to, the 1930s and 40s. That little black eye mask is pretty iconic. Typically it was just used as a way to kind of hide somebody's identity. At least that's the assumption. People that maybe, and the reason it was particularly in that early part is because, it was much less common for people to be posing nude or to be
of course
modeling for these sort of risque photographs, and there was the potential to get in a lot more trouble too.
Who was that girl in that scene, Casey? Did you identify her? That sort of like fuller figured girl in the bathtub. You know what I'm talking about?
Blonde one?
I do.
Yeah.
The blonde? It wasn't Yolanda in a wig.
No, I don't think it's
because Yolanda's in this. Yolanda Signorelli is in the shoe store, but then she shows up later as a blonde. Like in the forest with Barbara Ellen. She was like 19 when she did this movie, which is crazy. Very young.
But there's a lot of different body types in this movie. I don't think there's any black women in this that I spotted in the background.
No Natara.
Like, that would have helped.
I'm trying to think of who else. I think so. It would have been helpful. Yeah. But I'm also surprised by the drag in this, which is interesting.
I was surprised by that.
Yeah, because when you're watching movies like this, like when we cover all these different sexploitation movies, like we know who the general target audience is for. It's for like, especially in this era, it's like straight dudes who fought in World War II. It's old pasty baby boomers, male baby boomers. So then you realize like, okay, so that's the audience, and then they have to see this massage scene, and then they have to see a drag performer. Is that seen as an element of humor in the film, or is that seen as like another fetish? Because there were like cross-dressing magazines and things, I think, right, Jane, around that time?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, one of the major publishers, Leonard Bertman, who, as you guys know, produced Satan in High Heels, Bertman had a magazine called Female Mimics for a number of years during this era. Yes. 60s. And Female Mimics was actually a pretty sensitively done magazine. I really like it. Has some great imagery in it. It has some great, some performers that are kind of still known today.
Yeah,
But yeah, I didn't feel like the drag and stuff was added in as a humor element. In fact, one of the things that really impressed me about this movie was that it felt almost like looking at a fetish magazine like Bazaar, which was John Willie's magazine. And one of the things he focused on with Bazaar was covering a wide range of fetishes. He always said, there's what I like. He was personally interested in high heels and stockings and bondage, but he didn't limit the magazine to that. He tried to have as broad appeal as possible. And that's kind of what I felt like this movie was doing, adding in all this different stuff. It's almost like a little smorgasbord for whoever might be in the audience. And maybe you even find something new that you didn't know you liked because you hadn't been exposed to it before. I really liked that element.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then and I don't know, is there food in this too? Is there like food fetish stuff in this? Sort of.
There might be that party scene.
Yeah, maybe a little. Yeah, I mean, it really does feel like there's just you're right. It is just like a little bit of everything. It is like a smorgasbord or like it's like a fetish charcuterie or something. It's like, let's get a little of this, a little of that, see where it goes. And it all really works all really well together. Like it doesn't stop cold or feel awkward. It also does not feel like something that a novice is just throwing into a movie to meet a market demand.
Right. Let's see what sticks. It didn't have that feel. I agree.
Yeah, it feels like something that he was, at the very least, he was at least on a surface level familiar with all of it enough to make it feel authentic in this, and not like, pretend. Obviously, it's all pretend, but it definitely doesn't feel like, okay, well, this audience is going to expect like this lesbian scene, so let's throw it in there. Like everything really merges really well together. As an experience, which is not common. Yeah.
It kind of adds to that off-center feel where, or unbalance, like the main character is kind of thinking, what the hell is, going on, and looking from room to room and being startled. It kind of gives the viewer that same feel that the character is experiencing.
Yeah, it's like an erotic funhouse.
Yeah.
Right. But I also think it's interesting because at this time, this is 1967. So we're like at the start of the really roughies, where it really is about hurting women and punishing women, because before that, the nudie cuties are kind of like looking at the women. And so the roughies are the opposite of that. It's like, well, we don't want to just look at women. You would think the natural progression is, well, now I want to have sex with this woman because I've been looking at her. No, it's you want to punish this woman for whatever reason. It's all about punishment. And it's interesting because this movie doesn't really have that. It has a lot more women in positions of power, and not the kind of thing where it's like Findlay, where it's a central misogynist who is targeting women and brutally killing them. Like it's very interesting to note that this film doesn't want to take that route, which is expected, and as the market is turning in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, the last shot of the movie is the woman is still alive, thank God, right? In a lot of these movies, they're not.
Yeah.
So yes,
yeah. Sometimes there are no survivors, like Touch of Her Flesh and Curse of Her Flesh, right? Yeah. Exactly. Ugh. Rough stuff.
I keep thinking of last night, all the things you did to me. The way you began to take me so forcefully like a real man. Please help. I'm so unhappy.
That's no news. I've always been. Always.
Oh, my poor darling. I guess I haven't been much help. Sometimes I long to be something better, but I just can't help myself. There's something perverse in both you and Lorelei. Some weakness that makes me want to punish you both. Subdue you. Dominate you.
Let's forget about all of that now.
What do you think about the music in this movie? The Romeo and Juliet theme? Is it overplayed?
It's ballet.
Yeah.
No, not for me. It adds that level of not sophistication, but it adds a level of culture that you feel like it was selected intentionally, sort of. Because Romeo and Juliet is kind of I think the idea of Romeo and Juliet is that it's like a romantic fantasy, when in reality it is absolutely not. It is it is a tragedy. People reference Romeo and Juliet as oh my God, young love. It's no, it is awful. It ends very brutally. Like, I think people forget that. So I think that it was probably done intentionally. It wasn't, it doesn't feel like lazily picked out of like a stack of classical music LPs. For me, anyway.
Interesting. Yeah.
And the garage music is in all three of the Lou Campa ones so it's in Cool It Baby and it's in Miniskirt Love. That garage music that plays throughout. And I don't know where that came from. That's another, we kept running into this with these movies where it's music that we love and we don't know where it came from because we can't find the library music that it's from.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be like licensed anywhere, so nobody copyrights it, like strikes us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the funny thing, Jane. So he uploads these episodes to YouTube, and they like to do copyright strikes and say you have this music in this episode that's copyrighted. So that's how we're able to identify certain library pieces because the library companies now are making them available for streaming, and that includes YouTube. So they'll say, "Hey, we flagged this old '60s library music that like Sony owns now." So that's how we know what certain songs are sometimes. So,
you can use it as bait for the ones you want to know about.
Yep, that's what it is. Bait, yeah.
It is. Like, well, I mean, I use Shazam a lot of the time, but there are certain libraries that just aren't available. So we'll just, the KPM is available, Selected Sound is available. There's definitely Chappelle is largely available, but there must be little tiny libraries that we're not aware of that just have not been reissued and or they're not streaming anywhere. So we keep running into that.
We talked about Barbara Ellen a bit. I don't know if there's anything more to cover with her. Talked about Shep Wild.
I wish there was more to talk about with Barbara Ellen because I just find her so fascinating. But with that name, I feel like Ellen was probably her middle name, but we don't know her last name. So it's very difficult to research her. We know that she was married because her husband didn't really want her to do nudity in Venus in Furs. And that's kind of the thing where I wish that somebody had asked Marzano that question. Maybe Nathan Schiff knows. So that's something, if we follow up with Nathan Schiff, who knew Marzano, maybe he remembers who she was. It's because of the Marzano interview that I was able to pinpoint Belladonna's real name and find her, and find pictures of her in the newspaper and stuff from her modeling days in the 50s and 60s. So it does make me wonder. We keep bumping into this with people in sexploitation because the talent releases are long gone. And there's a lot of people obviously that produce these movies that aren't around anymore. So can't really ask for real names. We have to kind of hope and pray somebody remembers.
Yolanda, she's one of the girls here. She's the one trying on the shoes. Yeah, I definitely recognize her at the beginning when she's trying on the shoes.
It's great.
Yeah, she's so good.
She's back in the news now, though, because a new documentary about her just premiered at South by Southwest this year. Yes. So she shortly after making this movie, she was like 20. She met the guy who invented the sea monkeys. And this guy, terrible guy, I went to a deep dive about this guy. Apparently he was an active white supremacist, a member of the Aryan Nations and the KKK while he was involved with the sea monkeys. And then he died. So don't rest in peace, dirtbag. But she's still around. But the crazy thing is, she got involved with a legal battle for the rights to the sea monkeys with some other toy company. And these documentary filmmakers tracked her down, and she's living like Big Edie and Little Edie in a house in Maryland that's decrepit with raccoons and things, no electricity, no running water. So she's like Grey Gardens now. She's living like Grey Gardens. They did a documentary about her where apparently she's fine talking about making these films. It's not something she's embarrassed about. The official Sea Monkeys website has a statement from her that includes images from press books of movies she did. Like Assignment Female is on there. And I'm just like, okay. So we're not hiding this. Okay, good. Okay. Done nothing to be embarrassed about, girl. It's all good. Like this was 50 years ago. But I don't know how to get in touch with her if she has no electricity or running water. But she lives in Maryland, which is in my backyard from where I grew up in Northern Virginia. So I'm kind of like, do I write her a letter?
No, you go there. No, you go there.
But the thing is, I think the filmmakers were nervous because they also want to know about her husband. And he has a very controversial background, being a wildly racist person. I don't care about the husband. I want to know about the films and her modeling and things like that. I want to know about
involved
that.
with someone like that.
Well, we
And
already
did
know
she
that.
know? And did she
He
know
can't.
his
He met
background?
her there. We know that. She did know that. They have a daughter together. So I'm pretty sure she was aware, unfortunately. I just want to know about the films. That's all I
Yeah.
want to know about. I don't want to dig deep into the husband. I feel like other people can do that.
Do you ever run into that, Jane, where you run into characters that have really shady backgrounds and you're like, I got to put that aside and just focus on the art?
Not to the extent of like being in the KKK. Thankfully, that hasn't. I haven't
Right?
come across anything like that, and I would have a really hard time, separating that personally. But there are, people are complicated, and I would say one thing, for example, with John Willie, although I would not say that he expressed a lot of extreme prejudices. He would often say things about, like, for example, with cross dressing. Oh, well, cross dressing, that's not gay. That's like something real men do, like back in the,
Wow.
back in the days of knights and, in shining armor, it was very, chivalrous, and they would wear high heels, and that was normal. And he'd really make all these excuses, and he liked to emphasize that cross dressing was not the same as being gay. And of course, it's not the same, but it's also like, well, okay, John, but like, it's not
Right.
really a big deal. Like, they can coexist, and it's fine. It doesn't say anything about you.
Right.
And that's kind of a mid-century thing too. I'm sure hang up kind of.
Yeah.
So, there's things like that. But yeah, as far as like being an active white supremacist, I thankfully haven't run across anybody like that and had to
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was Ed Wood's perspective too, wasn't it, with regard to cross-dressing? He kind of saw it as like a manly thing as well, to a certain
I
extent.
think so. He did it
Yeah.
openly.
Yeah. Belladonna, we kind of talked about her, but if you're not,
We did.
again, we will shill our Patreon here. I have not seen this photo of Belladonna.
Which
and
one?
it's-
There's two.
Yeah, the ballet
Oh,
leotard
the one in the
outfit.
leotard. Yeah, she has a note in here in the newspaper saying pinup model Lisa Millot of Dayton. I'll say her real name because she's no longer with us. Is Lisa Millot. She used that name on Moonlighting Wives, which is actually how I was able to track her because that's the one movie she used her real name on.
This has happened several times with us, where it's like people's real names are just hiding in plain sight, and we don't realize
Well,
it.
that one I trusted more because I feel like there are more real names on those credits than the other Sarnos. I feel like that was a much more mainstream attempt of a film. So Lisa Millot of Dayton wants to become a serious actress. Quote, but as long as they pay me to wear a leotard and breathe deep, I will. It's like, okay. And that appeared all over the newspapers, all over the country. It hit all the news wires.
Well, you know what's funny too is like the more I think about it, in the movies that she's in, she does like active exercise, fitness type stuff. Like in this, she's riding that fitness bike. So it was like a little bit of her real personality, real life, like passion coming through.
She was a health nut. And that's why at first I was like, she's typically cast an older woman types in these films. And I said, yeah, but that happens in sexploitation. Well, you cast a woman who's like in her like late 20s, early 30s as like a mom or, an older woman. I'm like, okay, I guess if that works for the narrative. But like what was the math again? She was mid 40s, which is very rare for these films, like very rare. And especially the fact that she did do nudity in a number of films, like that is just unheard of at this time. Usually this genre is focused on like the newest young fresh face who is like coming up in their early 20s. So the fact that she was able to find her way into this industry and be successful is very special. I mean, I've always loved her because just, I think she's very special. Yeah. Janet was mid 30s.
Yeah.
She's 33, I think, because she turned 30 in 1964. Yeah, so she's like 34, 33.
Oh, okay.
But it's interesting. Yeah, it's just interesting to note the ages because I think, the expectation for sexploitation is always going to be young women. But when I think you're trying to cast characters in films that have story, you want to cast the right type. And so Belladonna just came along at the right time when you needed older women. Moonlighting Wives, like a lot of those women in that are a little older because they're supposed to be like suburban housewives and suburban mothers. So that casting works. But yeah, she's great. I hope her daughter gets back with me, and I hope it's not too awkward.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm looking back at what else do I remember, Bill? I remember her from a couple Sarnos. I'm just trying to think which ones she has like the bigger roles in.
She's a huge role, and she's doing it again, which is the one with Uta Eriksson, which she's really terrific in. And
Deep Inside, she's like the neighbor.
Yeah, she's very good. See, and something that I have to get ready to do, Jane, is that when I'm contacting family members of people who don't necessarily obviously want to see their family members nude in these films, so I have to create like a supercut of, like here's a highlight reel without the nudity of why, because as a gay man, I'm obviously not pursuing or interested in the women in these films for the obvious reasons. Like, so I will do a supercut of like their performances, or like, when they're lit really well, and like, I might have to do that for this daughter, actually, because just to be like, let's talk about your mama's modeling. Did she talk about the films? And if she hasn't seen them, then I have to introduce her to some of the good ones.
Yeah, what a great idea. What a great way to do it. Because also sometimes, even if it's not your family member, if you just want to see, sometimes you don't know where to start. And if you start with the wrong movie, you might just ship,
Yeah. I have to do that actually with, I'm friends with Barbara Mills' daughter, and Barbara Mills is someone that Gentry and I both like, and she passed away, but her daughter is interested in watching her mom's films, but her mom only made like a few movies that are like PG, and she did nudity in so many of her films. So I'm like, I need to do a supercut, because your mom was like she's a really good actress. And so there's a lot of good stuff that I can pull to kind of show her why she's such a magnetic cinema personality. It's really not about, the sexual persona. It's about like the cinematic persona, which sometimes includes nudity and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's about, the vibrancy and the personality that they have, that they bring to those characters.
Clip all that stuff, all her scenes from Blue Money. There you go.
Yes. Except for the scene where she's nude carrying a little child. Yes.
No, right. That scene even can't include
sweet. That. It is sweet because she just had her daughter at that time. So it kind of is like she's carrying the daughter that I'm friends with. Yeah. Yeah. So, but that does remind me, actually, Jane, I did want to ask. So in terms of research, we will run into issues with like people that either are gone and deceased, or we run into obstacles where somebody we want to interview doesn't want to talk. So for your book, like, what were there some obstacles that you ran into, but that you were able to like overcome those obstacles to kind of get what you needed for the project?
Yes. There were a few people, specifically John Willie's models, where I did try to reach out to some of the family members. Some of them had careers, not just in bondage modeling, but in other types of modeling as well. And there was one in particular who was a favorite model of John Willie's, and I tried to reach out to some of her family members, because she has since died, and wasn't able to, or didn't receive a response.
Is that Pat Conley?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
And she's such a great model. I really love her. But fortunately, I was able to find information through other sources as well. So that was good. Let's see, just kind of in general, it was a tough research project, because a lot of the people have passed on. And fortunately, the Kinsey Institute at Indiana University has a lot of John Willie materials. They even did interviews with him before his death. So that was really, really helpful.
Great.
We're so lucky as a culture to have those and to have that repository.
Yeah.
So, yeah, research is always kind of an up and down and up and down. And
yeah. Sometimes you reach out to people and you hear nothing. And it's like, I'd rather hear a no than radio silence. Just tell me no, so that I know that it's a definitive not going to happen. Right.
Yeah. And that it reached you, that you saw it, and that I wasn't writing to the wrong whatever. Yeah.
Yes, because that can happen too. Yeah. I mean, actually, I reached out to someone who I thought was an actress. I wrote them a letter, and they called me and they said, "So I'm not the person you're looking for, but I loved the letter. Tell me all about this woman that has my name." And I was like, "Okay, I'll give you the download of this cool person who has your name." And I kept listening, like, is it really them? Are they pretending just to see if I'm for real? And it wasn't her. So I was just like, okay. But yeah, the research is fun, but yeah, it's like you definitely run into those issues where you're just like, okay, where do I go to get the full narrative for the story that I'm telling? But it sounds like I'm really glad that you didn't run into that as frequently, and you were able to kind of tell that story effectively and completely for this project, because that's really incredible.
Yeah, it was a really exciting project to work on, for sure. I thought of one more thing about, you were talking about the age of the actors and actresses, and even, Shep Wild and stuff like that being older in Venus in Furs. And something that brings to mind for me is the fact that in the kind of fetish magazine world, the models aren't always young. There are older models, or if readers send in amateur photos, a lot of times it will be older people, older men and older women. And so there's a wide range of ages, and that was the case early on, but even into the present day, that is the case. I think a lot of times, particularly with the dominant women, age is considered sort of a benefit in a lot of cases as far as experience goes. And so that could have been part of it too, in terms of the casting for this particular movie.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes me wonder. Yeah, because like you mentioned, the experience angle. So it's someone who has lived life, and maybe they're more confident in where they are. And so it really is like, this is something that I want to do. It's not something that maybe someone younger would years later consider like a youthful indiscretion. It's something that they made an informed decision about because they were older and knew what they were doing. That's very interesting. I never thought about that because, for a lot of magazines, you see the personals ads in the back, and there is a wide variety of people in those personals ads. It really is very diverse. And I always love seeing those. I mean, it's decades later now, but it's just like, these were people who were really being very sexually progressive and wanted to explore their sexuality. And I love that. We don't really we talk about this on here, where I feel like we're kind of in like, in some areas we're in like a sexual dead zone, where there's a lot of negativity about elements of sex in film and in culture and things like that. So that's where we try to keep the conversation going in a way that we try to not make it as dirty as people are seeing it sometimes. Well, that's what I've said to
Jane, privately when talking about her book. I'm just like, you should be proud that this thing was even published these days, because there's a lot of places that just don't want to touch it. They won't even look at it.
So that's why, and that's also why Sex Fest, I'm really glad Sex Fest is still going,
Oh, too. They are so great. And the people behind it are so nice, they're really
cool. Yeah, there's a festival called Cinekink here in New York that I'm friends with the organizer of that, Lisa Vandeveer. And that keeps going. I actually, when is that coming up? But they do that I think they do that every year. I remember they even did it during COVID. They did like a from home version of Cinekink. And that's really great. And that really is it's very pro kink. There's a lot of independent filmmakers that will like contribute like into their short films that they make. Like it's really it's kind of, I guess, like the East Coast version of Sex Fest, but it's also very, very kink focused, all kinds of kink too, and very diverse.
Well, speaking of that, Jane, what are some kink films you would recommend? Are there any? They don't have to be necessarily your favorites, but maybe that sort of capture some accuracy or something that you think is worthwhile.
Ooh, God, that's a good question. I might need to get you a list. But like,
I would love that.
As far as like kind of, I mean, it's definitely a more recent vintage, but like Secretary, I really liked that movie. I thought they did a great job with that.
Secretary. Yeah.
It's kind of funny, but one of my favorite letters that was written into Bazaar was I think it was 1953. And this man wrote in about, he said, you go to the movies and you see a poster where you think there's going to be something in the movie that you like a woman tied up. And he said, but you may have noticed that when you go to this movie, such scenes are annoyingly brief. And so he said, what you can do is you can bring a camera into the movie theater with you. And he even explained how, like, you can sort of brace your elbows on your seat, the arm pads of your seat, and like make a little tripod so that you don't get any blur, and take all the pictures you want of the scenes that you want to see. And then he provided an entire list of movies. I'll like copy it and send it to you guys. It's so funny. He puts little asterisks next to the best ones, and some of them he says they're okay, but and then there's one called something girls, bad girls, or something like that, and he writes next to it, good poster. And I looked up the poster, and it's like, this school headmistress spraying this tied up girl with a hose.
Oh my God.
Alex DeSanto knows what we're talking about.
Then the movie obviously does not live up to it because he only comments on the poster.
Right, he only commented. He was like, this movie's not so good, but check out the poster. Yeah.
I love that. That is so cool.
That sounds like Rent-A-Girl. Isn't that a scene in Rent-A-Girl?
It does sound like Rent-A-Girl. Yeah, but that scene is in there. He would have commented and said the scene is good, I think, based on that.
He would have recorded that.
That's a really crazy scene, yes. That's fascinating. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, we need to see that list. Yeah, this sounds incredible.
It's cool. And it's kind of interesting because some of them are just, they're pirate movies or something where a woman got tied up to a ship or whatever. But that's
right.
In those days, that's enough.
That's enough, yep. Right. There are people out there like that, yeah.
But I also love the idea that, like, he wrote that letter in knowing that it might get published, and then that way, that's like that is that form of community building. Like, we would not get that until message boards and Reddit and like Facebook groups and all that stuff. And now in MySpace and stuff like that. So that's so interesting that, like, at that time, that was the way that you communicated stuff to the people that were simpatico with you. Like,
Yes, that is exactly correct.
I love that. See, and that's why anytime I get old periodicals that are like, sexually oriented periodicals, I always read the letters to the editor. I always read this stuff because sometimes it's just good questions. And sometimes it's people who actually have, like, been involved with, sometimes photographers and other people involved in the business write in and, like, you didn't get this correct, and that kind of thing. So it's very interesting. They're not always fabricated. I feel like the fabrication was maybe like something that happened later in, like, the porno years. But I love the fact that I love the letters to the editor being like, this is the bulletin board and the news updates for people of like mind. That is great. I love that.
Oh, I never know what I'm going to do. I live for the impulse. I love to do everything.
All right, Jane, you send us that, and then we'll create like a letterboxed list of all those movies and put it online. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because I'm trying to gauge ones that you would like more, because if you don't like the Olga ones, I mean, there are definitely better ones. And Olga, I mean, I guess we don't have to talk about Olga, but like I feel like those movies are very similar, like the Irving Klaw photos. But the Klaw photos, there's something much more sexually charged about those than those films. Probably because Klaw knew what he was doing, and I don't think Mara was really into. I don't think he was into the nature of S&M and bondage and things. But it's like more like play acting, I think, in those. Yes, but yeah, we'll have to figure that out, because some of the fetish, I don't know. It's interesting because a lot of fetish stuff and sexploitation, fetish really found more of a home when hardcore started, because it really was not something that was really present in a ton of softcore. But when stuff came out like The Image or the Naughty Victorians or
Story of Joanna,
The Image. Yeah, Story of Joanna. Oh my God, I love Story of Joanna. Yes. Stuff like that.
In 800 Fantasy Lane, there's like a dungeon scene.
That dungeon scene bothers the hell out of me because I think it crosses the line into, like, Hillary Summers was obviously very upset and crying real tears because Jamie Gillis took it too far. That bit might be cut out on current video versions, like the original uncut version. She's like hitting him and he's hitting her back. She's crying. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, that's a little over the top. Give me Story of Joanna, where it's a little more, it's a little more poetic and,
romantic.
Yes. And you get to see her dancing ballet because she was a ballerina in real life. Yeah.
I know, isn't that great? I love it when sort of like the whole thing about the exercise bike or like Shep Wild doing the massage. I love it when some of a performer's real life gets folded in with.
Yeah. It doesn't happen that frequently because we were just talking last week about an actress that was a singer. She had a Paramount recording contract. She never sings in any of her movies. Yeah, so we don't know what she sounds like. Also, because she didn't record anything. She had a contract, but no recordings were made. So we don't know what her singing voice was like. And that's when it's like, God, why couldn't you have done like this belladonna on a or Terry Hall doing ballet? Like, why couldn't you let us see some of who this person was?
Or I'm for some reason blanking on her name right now, but the actress that was in Satan in High Heels, and she sang.
Oh yeah, Meg Miles. Yes. Yeah, because she was a singer. Yeah, and she's great. Yeah, she's a good singer in that. Grayson Hall. Well, yeah, I'm so glad that was shown, and I'm bummed I didn't get to see it because what was the audience reaction to that? I would love to know how that screening went over.
Yeah, it went over really well. There were a lot of people there, and I was pleased to see people kind of laughed at all the right parts, the little kind of like subtle digs and stuff like that, or some of the kind of just kind of campy or silly parts. But yeah, people seem to enjoy it. I talked to a few people afterwards that had good things to say.
Yeah, I think we said on our show too, like that's a really good one to screen for people that might not be familiar with sexploitation because it's pretty tame at the end of the day.
Tame.
Yeah.
It's much more of like a melodrama. It is very like classic Hollywood bad girl.
It's something you could screen on TCM,
It's very pre-code actually. Yeah. It's something you would see in pre-code, like Babyface, or something. It reminds me of that. It's like, I'm going to make it to the top of show business in New York, and I'm going to, seduce a gay guy, go to bed with a lesbian, have sex with the boss's son. Like, yeah, it's very Stanwyck and Babyface. I'm just like, and you're on her side the entire time. I'm never not against her. Yeah. So I don't care if the movie's trying to make me hate her. You can't make me hate Meg Miles. I'm sorry. You can't make me hate the Satan in High Heels. Not possible.
And that movie's such a cool time capsule too, I feel, especially with the fashions. Not to derail, but like Samuel Robert was the designer that did the leatherware for that movie, and just so fabulous.
Yeah, we didn't talk about him on our episode, actually. I don't think. I wasn't aware that he was like a known person, I don't think.
Yeah, he was a leatherware designer. He actually worked in collaboration with Andre Corret for a while, who was another designer who had a lot of fetish influence in his clothing. Even though he's a high-end designer. Actually, at this period, kind of mid to late 60s, there was a lot of fetish influence happening in mainstream fashion. Samuel Robert, I think he started in the 1950s, 40s or 50s, actually, and he was a really creative leatherware designer, made some very unusual garments that were kind of conservative in line, but very unusual in fabric as far as using the leather and suede and stuff like that. I kind of wondered how he ended up getting hooked up with Lenny Bertman, other than just, I was wondered kind of, had he made garments for Bertman for photos or something like that? I wasn't able to find any information about that. But he even won some award from like leather manufacturers of America for promoting leather in such a great way.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Well, I think I said that was my favorite part of that movie was the brief leather outfits, and you hear the actual, crinkling of the leather. That's like the most erotic part of that movie to me.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that was the point. I think that's what Bertman wanted to be.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that was Gentry's main problem. He was like, there's not enough leather in this. Because that is, yeah. I mean, she doesn't get into the leather until the last act of the movie, and it's like she should have been in leather the whole time.
Yeah.
You should have heard her in leather crinkling into the place when she came to the city. Like she should have been in leather the whole time.
Yeah.
That would have been nice. But you also need that corruption, the city making her more corrupt, I guess.
Yeah.
That classic New York City corruption.
Well, I sense a bonus feature in the future. Maybe if we can get Satan in High Heels on Blu-ray, we can delve into some of this stuff.
Yes. Spoiler alert, we put a bug in the ear of a company that we work for to try to get that. So, yeah, I would love it. Now, I would love if you could screen Venus in Furs at Sex Fest next year or the next Sex Fest. The issue is with the Novak estate, but I think this one will probably go over really well too. I don't think it's not a story heavy as Satan in High Heels, but it covers so much territory and it would look really good on a big screen, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think people would be really into it because it just looks, like you say, it just looks cool. It just is.
Yeah.
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 I love it.
I'm glad you liked it, Jane, because we were searching for a film that you would enjoy talking about.
Yeah, I really did. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a good follow-up on this. You just think Cool It Baby, not Miniskirt Love?
I still think
Miniskirt Love isn't really fetishy. It does have Belladonna, though, and Janet Banzet. It has the two Doms in this as basically sisters.
Yeah.
You know,
Cool It Baby has that whole scene near the end with all the just like complete depravity going on everywhere with the
that's true.
They even have like blood sacrifice stuff going on with drinking goat's blood and all this strange stuff.
True. Maybe Sex Circus, actually.
That's
maybe. You don't think so? Alex likes that one.
I mean, it's on the scan for that is just like so hard to watch. The audio
that's
is all
true.
busted. I don't
that's
want to
another thing. We have
Gene.
to. Yes, that's true. Yeah, we want something that you can actually see and appreciate how well made it is.
Yeah.
If it's ugly, it's going to look terrible. That's true. Yeah. So, actually, I did want to ask, so are you working on anything new after the John Willie book is out? Do you have another project you're working on right now?
Yeah. Can you actually talk about it? That's the question.
Oh.
Yeah. I yes and yes. I mean,
okay.
Yes and no, I should say. I am working on my second book right now. Unfortunately, I can't talk about it yet, but it is going to be another biography. So,
great.
Is it in the same realm? Can you say that?
It's adjacent.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still in kind of a sex-focused realm, yes.
Okay, great.
All I needed to know. Sign me up.
Yes.
I love that. Yes, we're very sex positive here. We want to see more sexual history captured and shared with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need to buy this book now. I'm going to order it when we finish with this so I can finally read it.
It's so beautiful. Like I was telling Jane, like they do like the black pages. It looks so
Oh my
nice,
God, I
dude.
love that design. Oh wow.
And even on the inside, like I don't know what you call this. It's sort of like embossed. It's so nice.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love that. That is really cool. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, there was a really great design team at the publisher. I was really, really happy with what they came up with.
Yeah, Schiffer. That's with Schiffer Publishing.
Nice. Okay. Interesting. I'll put it next to my Samuel Stewart book.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Read that book, Gentry. That book is great too.
Gentry, have you read that yet?
I'm ready to expand my mind.
Oh, it's so good. His story is really, it covers so much. It's not, he was part of the S&M world, the publishing world, the tattoo world. Like he was a big photographer, so he photographed like rough trade and stuff. Like his story is really wild. He also was involved with hardcore. He wrote a hardcore movie, which is not good, but it was stolen from him basically. But yeah, it's you need that book. It's very good. You don't have to be you as a straight man. You will still like it. I will say that.
Yeah.
You're pretty open-minded anyway, Gentry.
Yes,
You're fine. Yeah, you are. I wouldn't be doing the show if you weren't. That would be a very difficult show to do.
Now, the moral of this story is that you can always learn more about people if you watch the face rather than the backside.
What do you think, Jane? Do you have any last thoughts? Any favorite scenes, Venus and Furs, as we close out?
God, I really couldn't pick a favorite scene in the movie. That's the funny thing, because at first I was like, oh, well, it starts off so great, and then it's like, oh, but the subway scene. Oh, no, wait, but all the girls running out of the library. I mean, I just loved it really from beginning to end. So thank you so much for this recommendation, because it was really an enjoyable watch.
And you said Rick liked it as well, right?
Yeah, he loved it. We actually ended up watching it twice, so that was
yes.
Great.
Oh,
it's very
that
watchable.
is high praise.
Yeah,
it is, and that's the nice thing about a lot of sexploitation. It's short, but then it's also a situation where like sometimes you're like, okay, this is the perfect length, and sometimes you wish there was more. You're like, okay, I could have done with like 20 more minutes of this, just because you like spending time with the people and the style is really engrossing.
That's the best compliment you can have.
This is perfect. Yes, like you wish it was longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've covered a few movies like that where we're just kind of like 62 minutes not enough, and we need like another 15. Yeah,
and there's some that
could have been 45.
Yeah, right. That's for sure.
Yes, Barry Mayhans could have been 30 minutes. Yes, a lot of this could have been half an hour.
Maybe we're just thoughts of yours. Thoughts of yours run wild. Wouldn't you like to join them?
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description.
Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show, and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice, and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.